Rahula, the silent disciple of steadfast practice. In the life of the Buddha, there was a unique figure who was not only a monk but also the Buddha's own son. That was Rahula, the young novice who entered the history of the Sangha as a shining example of silent, disciplined monastic life, from obstacle to a true son of the path. The name Rahula means shackle or obstruction, but this was not a rebuke. Rather, it was Prince Siddhartha's profound reminder that even the bond between father and son could become a chain holding one back from the path of liberation. Rahula was born just as the prince left the palace in search of truth. Raised in the royal household by his mother, Princess Yasodhara, a woman of deep devotion, the young boy received his first seeds of compassion and renunciation from her nurturing presence. Reunion with his father and the beginning of renunciation. Years later, when the Buddha had attained enlightenment and returned to Kapilavatthu, Rahula met his father for the very first time. Not as a prince, but as an awakened being, one who had gone beyond worldly attachments. Even as a child, Rahula felt something deeply moving in his father's presence, something far beyond blood ties. Encouraged by his mother, Rahula approached the Buddha and asked for his inheritance. But instead of gold or jewels, the treasure he received was the monastic life and the priceless teachings of the Dharma. The Buddha accepted his request and entrusted him to the venerable Sariputta for ordination. Thus, at just 7 years old, Rahula became the youngest novice monk in the Sangha. A strict training on the path of practice, as a young novice under the guidance of Sariputta, the Buddha's foremost disciple in wisdom, Rahula was trained with great rigor. Despite being the Buddha's son, he was not given any special treatment. On the contrary, his training was even more disciplined, forging the qualities of renunciation from a young age. The lesson of truthful speech. Like many children, Rahula was sometimes playful and carefree. On one occasion, he told a lie to avoid being scolded. When the Buddha learned of it, he didn't scold harshly. Instead, he gave a simple, powerful teaching. Rahula, do you see that foot-washing bowl over there? Once the water in it has been used, it's no longer fit for drinking or bathing. In the same way, if a monastic does not speak truthfully, their words lose purity and trustworthiness. That image sank deep into Rahula's growing heart, like an arrow of insight. From that moment on, he vowed to uphold truth in every word, never speaking falsely, not even in the smallest matter. A life of discipline and humility. Under the care of the elder monks, Rahula lived a life of quiet discipline. Despite his noble birth, he never relied on his status as the Buddha's son. Instead, he cultivated humility, always respectful to elders, never seeking praise or attention. When senior monks arrived from afar, he would respectfully offer his place and retreat to practice under a tree or in an open field. He rose early each morning, sweeping the monastery grounds, tidying his meditation space, and caring for his robe and bowl, all without needing to be told. In his free time, he would meditate silently or seek out teachings from senior monks. The Buddha once told the bhikkhus, "Though Rahula is young, his conduct is mature. You should all learn from his way of life." Meditation and deep contemplation. Rahula's diligence in meditation was one of his most remarkable traits. He would always seek quiet places to practice mindfulness and insight meditation. On one occasion, the Buddha taught him to practice impurity contemplation, a meditation on the nature of the body as impermanent and unclean, helping to release attachment and sensual craving. Rahula didn't just listen to these teachings with his ears. He absorbed them into his way of life through silent, steady, and sincere practice. Because of his hidden diligence, his quiet presence, and his unwavering commitment to the path, the Buddha praised him as foremost in secret practice, the silent one who embodies the strength of inner discipline, like a mountain unmoved by the wind. Attaining arahantship, the fulfillment of a true son of the Buddha. Over the years, Rahula grew not only in body but in spiritual maturity. He mastered the Vinaya, practiced deep meditation, and developed profound insight into the nature of mind, clearly seeing impermanence, suffering, and non-self even in the subtlest mental formations. One day, while meditating beneath a sala tree in a quiet forest, Rahula entered a state of serene concentration. Observing the breath, sensations, thoughts, all rising and passing away, he saw clearly the empty nature of all phenomena. At that very moment, he broke free from all mental defilements, transcending desire, aversion, and ignorance. Rahula had attained arahantship. From a child once seen as a hindrance, he had become a fully liberated being, no longer clinging to identity, no longer caught in the cycle of birth and death. Not just the son of the Buddha, but now truly a child of the Dharma, a radiant example of the power of discipline, humility, and quiet perseverance. One silent afternoon in the forest. One day, after listening to a Dharma talk from the Buddha, Rahula quietly made his way into the depths of the forest. He sat beneath a sala tree, still and steady like a stone unmoved by the wind. In his mind, he observed each breath, each subtle movement, each thought arising and fading away. He wasn't searching for anything. He wasn't hoping for anything. He simply looked deeply into reality, where there was no room for ego, where every phenomenon was dependent, empty of self. And in that moment of clarity, his mind became free of all defilements, breaking the chains of greed, hatred, and delusion. Rahula had realized arahantship, young in age, ancient in the path. Though young in years, Rahula's spiritual maturity was as solid as an ancient tree. After many years of practice under the guidance of the Buddha and revered elders like Sariputta and Moggallana, he had transformed into a disciplined, thoughtful practitioner. No longer the playful novice of his early days, he was now a calm and collected monk, living fully in mindfulness and inner contemplation. Daily practice, simple and deep. Each day, after finishing his duties in the monastery, sweeping the grounds, cleaning the meditation hall, fetching water, Rahula would go to a quiet place, beneath a tree at the edge of a forest or near a lonely cemetery. There, he would sit in silence, back straight, eyes half closed, his whole being melting into the stillness of nature. In meditation, he contemplated this body as merely earth, water, fire, and wind, elements that come together, then fall apart. He watched his breath, in and out, seeing the impermanence of all conditioned things. Slowly, he let go of the ideas of I and mine. He no longer saw the body as himself, nor feelings or thoughts as belonging to him. Everything was just a coming together of causes and conditions, arising and passing away like clouds in the sky. A moment of awakening. One day, while meditating beneath a sala tree in a quiet grove near Savatthi, his mind became still, like a lake without a single ripple. In that deep stillness, he clearly saw the source of suffering, clinging to the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. When the mind no longer grasped, no longer claimed, no longer generated craving, suffering vanished like morning mist under the sun. In that very moment, Rahula awakened to arahantship. No more birth and death, no more doubts, no more subtle cravings. He had become a noble one, completely free from all worldly and mental bondage, a moment of pure freedom. Opening his eyes, he looked up at the blue sky, the clouds still drifting, the birds still flying, but within, no movement remained. It wasn't that the world had changed, but that his mind no longer clung to it. Once called a shackle, Rahula had now broken every chain within himself. He was no longer anyone's son. He was a child of the Dharma, a child of nirvana, a child of ultimate freedom. A complete son, in the path and in life. Rahula was not only the model of an ideal renunciant, but also a shining image of a devoted and filial son. Though living the celibate monastic life, he remained deeply caring toward his mother, Princess Yasodhara, often visiting, supporting, and encouraging her spiritual growth and dedication to the Triple Gem. He never used the title Son of the Buddha to elevate himself. On the contrary, he honored that name through humble conduct, silent effort, and footsteps as light as the wind and as steady as the earth. In the Sangha, Rahula held no position of power, led no group, and claimed no authority. But his quiet presence became a beacon for young monastics, a living testament that it is indeed possible to walk the path to liberation when one begins early, lives humbly, upholds the precepts, and practices meditation with unwavering dedication. From shackle to jewel, Rahula, once seen as the shackle that bound the Buddha to worldly life, ultimately became a radiant jewel of the Sangha, a symbol of inner transformation, of silent strength, of deep hidden practice, and of wordless brilliance.